Guys, your environment is everything, right? Your environment is everything. And when you begin to understand how the universe works, you begin to understand the energetic reason behind everything. And you just understand how reality works in general. You realize how important environment is. And the reason environment is so important is because there's an energetic signature to your environment, right? And basically the way it works is, let's say you're in Michigan, right? You're in Michigan. No one out there is chasing their dreams. No one out there is trying to make a lot of money and, basically do what they would need to do that would allow them to be rich, successful, and live a fantastic life. Obviously, if you guys are watching this video, it's because you're either, chasing your dreams, or you're, trying to do things that's going to allow you to live the exact life you want to live. Some of you are already making some good money. There's many, but pretty much you're people who want to self-improve themselves, right? This video isn't, not people who are average aren't really going to see this video because that's not my audience. But pretty much the way it works is, if you are in an environment like Michigan, right? Everyone's a loser, everyone's average, and you're in these tiny cities. The reason it's so dangerous is because of the energetic aspect of it all, right? So basically what begins to happen is, if you're in a bad city, right? You're surrounded by low frequency people, you're surrounded by bad people, you're surrounded by people who don't want to achieve anything, you're surrounded by extremely average individuals, you're surrounded by people with a bad mindset, people who have they have an insane amount of limiting beliefs. What happens is you begin to be affected by their energy, right? So there's an energetic signature to the environment, and it's kind of like tuning forks. You begin to synchronize, your frequency begins to synchronize to that frequency. That's why a lot of you guys who are already making pretty good money, who are successful, or a lot of you guys who are currently in the grind right now, that's why it's felt so hard and difficult in the beginning a lot of the times, because you're literally going against the energy of your environment. You're going against the frequency of your environment, right? You're trying to be successful. You're trying to live an amazing life, and then everyone in your environment is average. Everyone in your environment has a bad mindset. Everyone has limiting beliefs. So if you're in Michigan and you're trying to live a very successful life, right, and everyone around you has limiting beliefs, a bad mindset, negative mindset, everyone's low frequency, basically what happens is the energy of your environment, it begins to unconsciously affect you. It's like you're synchronizing to it. It's like if you look at tuning forks, right? Something is always trying to drag one tuning fork to the frequency of the other tuning fork. And here's another thing, right? I'll get in a bit even deeper into it, but everything is energy, frequency, and vibrations. And your physical reality is a reflection of the frequency that you're vibrating on. But in a sense, a lot of people think, oh, well, I decided to do this today. I decided to do that. No, you're not in control. Your subconscious mind is in control. You have an illusion of control. The conscious mind thinks it's in control, but really everything is happening in perfect synchronicity. Everything is happening in perfect automation. You know what runs this shit? Your frequency runs this shit, not you. Everything that you're going to do, the day's already planned, bro. It's already planned. Your frequency runs everything, and it gives you the illusion of free will when you don't actually have any, right? So your frequency runs everything. Your physical reality is a reflection of the frequency that you're on, and your frequency runs everything, right? And you have to understand that you are basically possessed by your frequency. You are channeling your frequency. You are possessed by your frequency. It's like, Melvin, what do you mean you're possessed by your frequency? Well, let me explain, right? Let's say someone has a drug addiction, right? A drug addiction. If someone has a drug addiction, you're not gonna tell me they don't look like they have symptoms of possession. Like, if you look at those crackheads downtown, they're all itchy. They're possessed, but we're all possessed. You're being possessed by your frequency. So someone with an addiction, let's say someone has a drug addiction, for example, they are possessed by their current frequency. They can consciously decide that they do not want to partake in this specific substance, but they feel this massive urge, this massive invisible pull trying to get them to do that specific thing. That's possession, bro. You are possessed by your frequency. So a lot of people who have addiction, the reason it's so hard to break out of that addiction is because they're on a specific frequency. Bro, you have to stop viewing reality through your physical eyes and understand that everything that controls reality is invisible, right? Reality is controlled by energy. Stop thinking reality is physical, it's invisible. That which is physical is controlled by the invisible. That's why so many people, let's say, for example, this is for entrepreneurs who are on the come up, or on a lot of people who are already successful, right? When you were trying to grind, it was extremely difficult, wasn't it? When you were on the grind, when you're trying to make money, when you're trying to do all these things, it was difficult. Why was it difficult? Well, if everyone around you is a loser, everyone around you is undisciplined, everyone around you has a limiting belief, everyone around you has a bad mindset, everyone around you is on a low frequency, everyone around you is saying, oh, well, you can't achieve that, it's not possible. That affects your energy, bro. Especially if you're in that environment. Unconsciously, your energetic field, your frequency starts tuning into their frequency, because that's the core dominant frequency of that environment. That's how it works. It all happens unconsciously. The same way, once you started making money and then you move to a better environment surrounded by people who think the way you think, right? You unconsciously started feeling way better, because it doesn't feel like you're climbing upstream, climbing uphill, right? So you have to understand that environment is extremely important. And every single environment, don't just look at the environment, there's an energetic signature. Yes, the environment's physical, but look at the invisible. Focus on the invisible, focus on the energetic signature of that specific environment. And understand that energy is a frequency. And that frequency is going to possess you and unconsciously compel you to act within a certain way. All right, this is how it works. Perfect example of this is why, you see everyone in school, they all, okay, let's go to college, let's do this. Everyone is possessed by the frequency of their environment, which is why you see a lot of people are NPCs. They don't really think. Why don't they think? Because they're possessed. It's the environment. If you look at everyone who's raised and around the same environment, usually they all end up doing the same thing, right? There's this dude I know, it's like a neighbor. This guy has been living in the same neighborhood since he was a kid. He's an adult and he's been in the same neighborhood as a kid. It's like, bro, what? He hasn't left his little box. It's crazy, right? So environment is extremely important, and the reason environment is extremely important is because every environment has its own frequency, and you have to understand the energetic signature of your environment. And the frequency, you are possessed by your frequency, right? If you wake up and you don't feel like doing anything, a lot of the times that's because of your environment. If you were surrounded by a bunch of people who are disciplined, they have impulse control, they have these insane beliefs that they believe they can achieve, they're on this high frequency, it's going to be way easier to achieve your goals. You're going to wake up full of energy, right? But if you are surrounded by people with limiting beliefs, unconsciously you're going to be like, I don't feel like doing that today. You don't feel like doing it today because basically you're being possessed by the frequency of your current environment to keep you at that frequency. Frequency is always trying to keep you at the current frequency that you're on. It doesn't want you to go to a new frequency. And this is why environment is one of the most important things. It's not the environment in and of itself, it's the energetic signature of that specific environment. If you live in fucking Michigan, if you're surrounded by negative people with limiting beliefs, if you're surrounded by people with negative mindsets, if you're surrounded by average individuals, 9-to-5ers, people who don't believe they can achieve anything, people who haven't self-improved, it's an extremely bad environment to be in if you want to genuinely achieve super amazing things. If you have these super big, massive, amazing goals and you're surrounded by people who have no goals, their frequency, that's the core frequency of the environment. Unconsciously, it's going to affect your energy and it's going to feel harder to reach. It's going to feel more out of reach. But a lot of you guys know this. As soon as you start making money and then you switch your environment and surround yourself by people who do think the way that you think, it becomes way easier, doesn't it? Because now you're not climbing uphill, now you're going downhill, right? So the reason environment is so important is because every environment, there's an energetic signature to it, right? And the frequency of your environment is going to possess you. It possesses you and compels you to act within a certain way, right? That's what a lot of people don't know. So you have to understand that, a lot of people say, I have control. No, your frequency's in control. Your frequency is in control. Understand the game.